Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on SAP UI5. In the last class we discussed about creating a Fiori-like app end-to-end using route match handler. In today's session we will start with OData service. Before we get into the system, let's try to understand once again what is an OData service and what are all the different aspects of an OData service. So OData stands for Open Data Protocol. It is one of the best way to communicate over internet using HTTP protocol, also known as REST-based services. An OData service consists of typically two important aspects. One is service document, another is called service metadata document. In order to look at the service document, we just need the URL of the service. For example, HTTP server hostname colon port number of the server slash SAP slash OPU slash OData slash SAP slash service name dot SVC, something of this sort. Then comes is the metadata. So if you just put slash dollar metadata at the end of the service URL endpoint, you will be able to look at the metadata of the service, which shows you all the properties, the key properties and different entity types. So it shows you all the entity types. And corresponding to that, you can look at the different properties, key properties, association, aggregation. A service document gives you an end picture of all the entity sets. It's a collection of entity sets. These entity sets are created with the help of entity types, which is nothing but the template or the structure of business object. We also have relationship between entity types, I would say entity sets, known as association. Using the association, we can create navigation property. I will show you that in the system how to create a navigation property. Remember, we saw the data for products and then the supplier of the products from the navigation property. Other than this, in OData service, we also have something called function import. Function import is just like calling some business logic from OData. So imagine you have a function module, you want to trigger that without by passing some import parameters. So what is the best way to do that? It can be done using function import. So typically entity sets are only used for the purpose of CRUD operations, which is nothing but create, read, update and delete operations. And then your function import. Other than this, you also have the media type, which helps you to process complex data types like images. We will discuss this as well in our chapter. In order to improve the performance of the application, we use batch calls in OData. This is also very good interview question. What is a batch call? So we combine multiple calls going to the backend into a batch request and send it all for once. We will discuss about the batch call in our upcoming chapter as well. So that's in a nutshell about an OData service and its capabilities. Yeah. Now, in order to build OData service, in SAP environment, we need to have following prerequisites. Following prerequisites are needed. So first is knowledge. What knowledge do you need to have? You need to know ABAP, OOPS ABAP, and basics of OData. This is what you need to know to build OData services in SAP environment. So all of us are already aware of ABAP. Regarding OOPS ABAP, I've already posted the complimentary OOPS ABAP videos on my blog. I've already emailed all of you. Hope you all have gone through those videos. And then comes the basics of OData. That is what we have also discussed in our past chapter, connecting our OData service with our least control. We already did that. Now next, what we need to do here is we need to go ahead and also talk about the prerequisite in terms of system. So the system which you got to use is, it's known as SAP NetWeaver Gateway components. So when you have a SAP system, you need to have SAP NetWeaver Gateway components installed in your system in order to create, in order to define, I would say define, create, manage, register, and activate the OData service. Okay. Another aspect which is there in every system of SAP, it's known as ICM. It's known as Internet Communication Manager. This is what is available anyways in all the systems, and then you should have required roles for your user to create the OData service. The component name, technical component name for this is IW_FND. This is the component name which has to be there in your ABAP system in order to create SAP based OData service. So OData service in general is concept remains same. Either you are creating using SAP or using Java or using .NET, whichever technology you're using, the concept and the contract remain same. Whether you're building from SAP or not .NET or Java or Node.js, any technology you use, doesn't matter. The contract, the terms and conditions, the support for different operations like CRUD operations including function imports, $top, skip, all this remains same as it is. It doesn't really change. Okay. Now, moving on next, let's have a quick look at the architecture. Now, in the last class, we have not yet discussed about manifest.json, a drop-down control, and also the paging capabilities. These three things I will cover with the same example when we will connect our project with a real OData service what we will build in Gateway. So I'm going to build a Gateway OData service in couple of sessions, and then we will be connecting our Fiori app with that OData service in this gateway system. Now, as far as the gateway system is concerned, just to brief you out, if you guys have, I will show you how to find out whether the gateway components are installed or not and they are activated or not in your system. If not, then probably to practice this, I'm saying to practice, you would need a server access. So I have already seen many of us already working on some projects and we already have a system available, so no need to spend for getting a server access. Now in case if you don't have a server access, and if at all you have it and you are afraid to do something in that server, you can opt for server access from my website. So the cost for that is going to be 1500 INR per month per user. I am myself not hosting this server. This server is hosted by somebody else and I can get a user arranged for you. If you want to go and find out yourself, you can just Google and try to see if you can get an OData server user at a lesser price. If you can get a lesser price, you can pay there and you can get it. The advantage of getting it through me is I'm going to get it for the same use server which I am using. So at least you can later on go back and look at our examples and the code what we are going to write, because from here onwards I will not be able to share the code because it's not an Eclipse project into the blog. Yeah, you got to go back or either watch the videos to write down the code. Now I will not get into ABAP and OOPS ABAP in this. I assume that you all know ABAP and OOPS ABAP in order to process or proceed with the programming. Now, to create the service, there are multiple techniques. One is manual technique where you write all the code on your own. Second technique is service generation technique, in which even you don't need to know ABAP and OOPS ABAP. We will discuss that technique as well. Now, next part. We are going to create an OData service, but what is the scenario we are taking? So what SAP does is, SAP provides a demo training scenario in all systems. Demo training scenarios in all systems is what SAP provides. So I would say demo training scenario or demo training data. Okay, so we can make use of this demo data to build our OData service. See, you need data. You want to expose the data using OData service, right? So that's what we will be doing here. We will reuse some of the demo data provided by SAP for training purpose to build our OData service and build our scenario. That particular data is called EPM model. It's a very popular model, just like Northwind database service. It's available almost in every SAP system, including SAP HANA. So those who know about HANA and have taken some online courses on HANA, there also we have this EPM model available. It's known as Enterprise Procurement Model. It includes very simple data sets and function modules. I would say simply the functions which anyone, irrespective of industry, can understand. In all our life, we, some or the other point of time, we always visited these retail stores. So what we do is we just go to retail store for purchasing groceries. We pick up all the items into the cart, and finally we go to the billing counter to get the billing done. So that's what typically an enterprise procurement model works. It includes different types of tables, data tables, which stores the data for very common artifacts like products, suppliers, um, suppliers orders, etc. Purchase orders, sales order, etc. So Very common practice which we all know. I'm not getting into some kind of complex scenarios of, let's say, ESS or MSS or materials management or financial controlling. People will not be able to understand. So we go with this very simple scenario. Imagine you have a product, you have supplier, and then you have purchase orders and sales orders. That's the kind of scenario we are taking up here, EPM model. Now, it includes multiple data tables, but that's what should not be our main source. And also our purpose is to not learn select queries, ABAP programming, OOPS ABAP programming, reportings, uh, modularization techniques, classes, concepts. These things were not our purpose. Our purpose is to build an OData. So you at the end of the day, you need a data source which gives you the data. So typically in any company, if you look at any SAP product, if you look at how it is built, so you always have something called database layer. I'm not talking about three-tier architecture. Do not confuse this with three-tier architecture. So what is database, or we also known it as persistence layer? A persistence layer is actually nothing but your data, actual raw data stored in form of database tables. That's what your persistence layer is. So all your data is actually stored here. Okay, it's the raw data in the crude format stored over here. Sorry. And then on top of it, you have something called database layer. Sorry. Just give me a minute, guys. I'll be back. Then on top of the persistence layer, you have something called database layer. So what the database layer is, it's actually nothing but your logic, which only deals with retrieval and storage of data. It's called DB layer. Now DB layer is nothing but collection of function modules and classes which only talks to the database tables. It doesn't have any processing logic. It purely includes the function module and classes, macros, or let's say logical database artifacts, which only and only perform the DML operation and DDL operation, DQL operation, and probably some kind of TCL operation. So all of us know about SQL during our college days, data manipulation language, insert, update, delete, all modify, all these operation comes under data manipulation. DDL is about create table, alter table, drop table, all the data definition language commands. DQL, data query language, all the select queries to retrieve the data in a different format and applying the complex view logic, inner joins, all comes under DQL. And then TCL comes under transaction control language like commit work, rollback, save to intermediate save points. All this comes under your DB layer. Purely talks to the database table and database artifacts working with the data. This is again nothing but collection of function modules and um, and classes, yeah, to deal with the data. It talks to directly database table. Then on top of it, we have something called business layer, or we also known as API layer. So this layer is actual business logic is what is hold. So it's called business layer, or also known as API layer, my favorite. This is what I worked in my career. Most of my time was spent in this layer. Okay, so any developer, you can be any big shot, or you can be any developer, architect, associate architect, senior developer, principal developer. One or the other day, you were actually working with one of these layers in the software stack. Okay, one of these layers you were working, yeah, one or the other day. Now this includes your typical business logic, your constraints, your object handling, your sequences, your different types of reports, report programming, report programming, function modules, includes, macros, all the modularization techniques, blah, 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 you were working with. You also would have worked here with your exception handling. All that comes under your API layer. This is typical business logic, business constraints, different tools also you can use here to do all the stuff. Then on top of this layer, there's another layer which is also my favorite. It's the UI layer, which includes all your UI artifacts. Now this UI layer includes all your different types of UI development which you can probably do in a company. So in context of SAP, you typically work with different types of UI artifacts, like let's say you work with dialog programs, reports which has selection screens. You can work with WebIDE Pro controllers, WD WebIDE Pro ABAP or WebIDE Pro Java. Yeah, then you have all your BSP, business server pages applications, BSP applications. You can have SAP UI5 and FIORI applications. All that comes under your UI layer. That's what you do here. And then there is a connection between this UI layer and this business API layer done. So some of the new technologies, like you have your BSP is connected through SOA, service-oriented architecture, SOA services, we call it as, or if it comes to SAP UI5 and FIORI, we use OData protocol. So there is a nice thin layer which is being introduced, in this stack recently. It's called service layer, which includes all your service relevant code. Like you will be writing, I will show you that how to build this service layer, how to write different artifacts. So this is all in all, you have your entire development of software done. Yeah. Then along with this, I'm skipping here the customizing, the configuration, um, the system setup, all these things, set of customizing, set of related business objects, constraints, and other stuff like integrations. These are separate things. All in all, a development of a software is done in this way. So I've been working, when I left my job, I've been working was as a associate architect. So that's why uh, I do have a quite deep knowledge in these topics. So now this is how we built a software. So one or the other day, one of you will be working in one of these layers. Okay, so you can easily now find out what kind of work you are doing and which layer you are working with. Yeah, these things nobody will cover in any of the chapter. You will also not find some information about these things on internet easily. Yeah, this is a real-time practical experience, what I observed, what I felt when I was working on different assignments. Yeah, one or the other developer comes under these sections. So now the service layer, what it does, it provides you the OData service in our case to connect to the business layer or DB layer directly. So now this service layer either can directly talk to the DB layer also, guys. Okay, it can directly talk to the DB layer also, or it can make a call to the API layer, and then from there the call may go to the DB layer. So this is also possible. Now if you're building a pretty simple straightforward service, you probably write your API logic along with the service layer. So sometimes these two layers are joined. Okay, it is also possible to combine these two layers, so which means you're actually writing your exception handling plus calling the database layer, calling the database function modules to perform the DEDL or DML commands in the service layer itself. It's possible. Okay, so this is the kind of scenario we are going to now look at. We will build a service layer along with the exception handling, nothing but API logic, by directly consuming the DB layer. Now what is the DB layer in this case? For EPM model, we will see some function modules which we are going to consume, guys, and these function modules will help us to retrieve the data. So you don't need to understand underlying database persistence layer completely. You don't need to know the table names, the join between these tables, the join conditions, the columns, all these things are not required to you to know, because you just know the DB layer, and entire complexity is hidden behind this DB layer, how the tables are created, how the data is managed. It can be very complex. The persistence layer can be very, very complex. It's a mash of multiple tables connected together with some foreign key relationship. So you don't need to understand all that at all. You can simply go with the DB layer, and this DB layer is then can perform all the operations for you into the persistence layer without any issues. So you can have a single function module which can do an insert into database tables, and it can be multiple database table which you should not worry about. So let's say if I'm creating the data products, so I have, let's say, 5 tables which stores different data for a product. One stores the product keys, one stores the product plant data, one stores the product supplier data, one stores the product text data, one stores the language specific data for the product, one stores the price data. So I have 5 different tables, and when I create a product, I suppose if I have to manage it manually, I have to insert 5 different records in 5 different tables. Yeah, in each of the table, 5 different records. So I don't want that complexity to be done. That's why I built this DB layer. It has a function module exposed. That function module is also remote enabled. Hence, I can make a call that function module from an external system or a non-SAP system as well. It's known as BAPI. So typically these type of function modules in DB layer are built as BAPIs also. And then finally I can make a call, and then I can insert the data in all the database records. So there are a lot of sample function modules provided for the practice purpose in the EPM model for different types of artifacts. So if you talk about, let's say, product, any any entity type, let's say in this case the product, is it will have 5 function module. One is to get the all records, second is get single record by key. You can read one single record from database table based on, let's say, some key, maybe let's say product ID. Then you have getting all the records available in database tables. You can create a new product. You can update product information. You can delete product data. So all this is provided in sample function module. So any function module in EPM model starts with naming convention BAPI underscore EPM underscore. This is the starting point for your function module name underscore the operation. Now what type of operation you want to do? If you are trying to get the record, all the records, you call get list is the operation name. If you want to get the data for a single record, you use get details. Then if you want to create the record, you call create, update, delete. All this you can call. So all the CRUD operations are supported by different function modules provided by EPM model. So anybody for product, if I want to read all the records, what will be my function module name? Anybody, if you follow this naming convention, what will be your function module name to get the list of all the products? Anybody, by following this naming convention, you can easily tell what will be the name to get the list of all the products. What will be the name? Anybody? Come on guys, you can guess that. What will be the name of my function module if I want to get the list of all the products available in the system? Very good. So it starts with BAPI underscore EPM underscore product underscore get list, because my intention is to get the list of all the products. So get list, this is my entity name, and this is BAPI underscore EPM prefix. So now Can anybody tell me what will the function module name to get the single record based on product ID? Anybody? So BAPI underscore EPM underscore product get detail. Let's go and check this if it is there in the system. So I just connect to my SAP system. Mhm. Yeah. So I just go to SE37 and now let me just go back here and search for this, and voila, you see my function module name BAPI EPM product get list. That's my function module name. Perfect. Now if it comes to the get details, let me just go and check this get details. Just come here, just search for this get details. Oops, it's not there. Looks like I just, yeah, it's not S at the end, it just get detail, not S at the end. So get detail is what you should use. Now, similar to this, anybody, if I want to create a new product into database tables, which is the function module name which I would like to use for creating a new product in the system? Can anybody tell me, as per the naming convention, what will be the name of the function module which helps me to create new product into the system? Anybody? What will be the name of my function module to create a new product into the system? Anyone? Creating a new product. BAPI EPM product. Create, perfect answer. So BAPI EPM product. Create. I want to create one. And similar to this, I have BAPI EPM product update and BAPI EPM product delete. So these are the function modules we have. All are remote enabled function modules, hence their BAPIs. Now next we have supplier. Supplier is also known as business partner, BP. So who supplies the product to us? Similar to this, if we look at the product. So anybody, what will be the name of the function module which gets me the list of all the suppliers in the system? Anyone? What will be the name of the function module which gives me the list of all the suppliers in the system? All the suppliers in the system. Anyone? What will be the name of the function module? It's pretty simple to guess just by looking at the naming convention. So the naming convention says it should start with BAPI underscore EPM underscore, and then you have to put your entity name, which is BP in this case. And then if you want to get the list of all the employees, sorry, all the suppliers, it's just called get list. Perfect. So it's going to be pretty simple with the naming convention BAPI underscore EPM underscore BP underscore get list. Now I can run and show you the function module as well. So some sample data is what this function module will give you. BP underscore get detail or get list is what I will show you first. Click on display. You can see it's there. Execute it. And of course, it doesn't really take an import parameter right now. You can just say run. It gives you the list of all the suppliers in the system. So I just say execute, and you can see there are 45 entries which it gives me in BP header data. So here you go, you can see the supplier details. 45 suppliers are there. It is a test data for creating for your training purpose. Yeah. So this all test data you can use for creating or practicing OData service. Similarly, if you just go and look at the products, so I just come here and show you products. Click on display, execute it once again, and you're just gonna see 110 entries have come in. You can see 110 entries have come. 110 products are there. Now you don't need to worry how many underlying database tables are designed to get this data. Okay, you don't need to worry about it actually. Yeah, it's there in the system. Now just go back. So this is how you can check your function modules. Similarly, you can build the name of the function modules accordingly based on the entity what you need. So similarly, you can build it for orders as well. So BAPI underscore EPM underscore order get list, order get detail, order create, order update, and order delete. Like that, you can really design your tests. Yeah. Now let's also understand the architecture of the gateway system. So as I mentioned that in order to build the OData service, your gateway component has to be installed in the system. So how can you check it? So just come to systems status. So if you have a system in your company, guys, you can just go to the system status and see if the gateway is component is installed or not in your SAP system. And if it is not there, then you will get to know that this system of no use for me because I can't really build OData tests. Yeah. Or sorry, OData services. So here you come and now click on this component version. And if you see here, you should be able to see the component for gateway GWFND. You can see, sorry, it was I wrote it wrong. Here it's GWFND. Um, So the component which you need is GWFND. Let me just check it. I think I've written IWFND. It's GWFND, Gateway Foundation. It's called as Gateway Foundation, guys. GWFND, SAP underscore GWFND. Gateway Foundation component. That has to be there in your system. You can see it's there. Gateway Foundation for 7.4. It's already there. Now, which means I have it ready in my system. Now, there is a superset of this which includes three more components. So one of the component is GWFND. It's called IWFND. If IWFND is also there, which means your system is ready, you can actually build OData services in your system. It includes the gateway component. Now I'll uh, come to the next part here. You can also check the transaction code if it is there, SEGW. This is the transaction code to create any OData services, okay, which we use. SEGW. We will come to it later. Now, once you found that the component is there installed in your system, you can also go and check in SPRO, the settings for gateway. So just come to SAP MG reference, expand SAP NetWeaver, gateway, OData channel, configuration, and activate or deactivate SAP NetWeaver gateway. So here you can go and just choose if your gateway system is active or deactivated. It has to be active in order to provide support for any OData service enablement. Yeah. So right now it's active, so it's showing me option to deactivate. I don't want to do that. So I just say cancel. So this is how you can see what is the current state of gateway. Okay. Now, what is the overall architecture of these systems? So typically in a company, we have two types of installations done. One is called central hub scenario and one is called uh, uh, one more type of installation is called single hub scenario. So there are two types in which a company would can probably leverage SAP Fiori and the OData services. So imagine a company who has SAP ERP installed, and since last many years, okay, since last many years they are using SAP ERP. Now all your business logic, your dialog programs, existing developments, custom developments, your database tables, your all the data, business data, all the configurations, customizings, and I don't know, thousands and thousands of things are invested in this system, and this has been built. Now, to improve the user experience, SAP offered SAP Fiori. Okay, so SAP Fiori is here with Fiori apps. Now, do you think to support SAP Fiori apps, this company would migrate their system to a completely new system? Do you think a company would change and throw this ERP box out and they will migrate to a new system to support SAP Fiori technology? Any company would do that? Can any company say, can you go to any company and say, throw this out and do everything, re-engineer everything again to a new type of system which supports SAP Fiori? If SAP do this, they actually are disrupting their customers or their partners. They cannot do this, right? Because there's an investment done in long years into this box to build. That's why we got a new approach where we either install a special power, we give a special power to this system itself, okay? Either we give a special power to the system itself, or we add a new system which has the special powers already on top of the existing system. That is what it's called embedded scenario or central hub scenario. In embedded scenario, we give the power to this system to support SAP Fiori and OData. But if you don't want, if a customer don't want to do that, what SAP says is, this is more recommended and more feasible scenarios in most of the companies is you run with a new system. Okay, you just add on a new system over here, and this is called central hub scenario. This is known as SAP NetWeaver Gateway System, which has support for SAP Fiori apps. You can run your Fiori apps natively in this. You have SAP Fiori Launchpad in this. You have also all the OData services activated here. So you create the object, you create the service here because your business logic is still present in this layer. So you define your service, but you activate and register the service in this. And these two systems at the bottom are connected through a secure RFC connection. Now, hope all of you know what is RFC, stands for remote function call. To connect to SAP system, we use a type 3 type of RFC connection. In SM59, you can build these connections. So you have an existing investment done into a company, and this company then can leverage this investment and build a project, a service project. And then this service project is being leveraged over here, and here we will build, we will just register the services, and then from there onwards, these Fiori apps, what you deployed also into this gateway system. So gateway system, it acts like a hub, central hub. From there, all the Fiori apps are hosted, all the services are registered, and any calls to your business data passes through this thin layer of RFC to this actual backend system. So this is called central hub scenario, running in parallel one more SAP server which has capability to store Fiori apps, capability to enable OData service consumption to SAP Fiori applications. So that's called central hub scenario. Special powers are there with this new server attached in parallel to the existing ERP box. If you give same power to your ERP box, it's called embedded scenario. So you got to install a lot of software components, and there is a high risk because it may disrupt something. During installation, you may have a downtime as well. So that's why people would like to go with the central hub scenario, connecting one more system in parallel. And especially whenever the POCs are done, a company would like to go with the new Fiori based apps and want to experience SAP Fiori, they will go with this this type of option. Yeah, so that is what it has been offered as a central, and this is how it has been done in most of the companies, central hub scenarios. Now, configuration for this, how to set up, what are all the different components needed, it's all covered in my next course, SAP Fiori Launchpad course with WebIDE, is where I covered all the details with SAP Fiori Launchpad, different apps, standard apps which SAP gives you, activate them, enhance them, create the extensibility for them, how to create this connection, system aliases, secure RFCs, different front and back end configurations, debugging, running from Fiori app and debugging into the backend system, identifying the logic, creating the system aliases, connecting these systems with the users, how the users will play an important role to connections, role concept, how to build the custom roles, use standard roles, use Launchpad Designer, use Theme Designer, your custom branding, your KPI tile creation. In case you're using on HANA database, you can build KPI tiles, analytical apps. All that is covered. Workflow integration, all that is covered in my next course, which is SAP Launchpad with SAP WebIDE and Gateway Layer. So it's not part of this course. It's again very big detail out things which we do into that course. It's not covered here, but just an architecture point of view, I explained you how it is being built. So now here in this, you can create the OData projects and then register these OData projects as OData services, and then these OData services can be used by your Fiori apps. Once your Fiori app is ready, you can deploy the Fiori app in this system itself and release the transport. It reaches to all your quality in production accordingly. We will see an end-to-end scenario. We have already built a Fiori-like app. I'm going to build an OData now and then connect this OData to our that Fiori app, and finally deploy this Fiori app as a custom Fiori app into the system and release it for end user consumption. Yeah, that is what I'm going to do in upcoming chapter. But our major focus is going to be developing the OData project and then exposing the OData service out. Yeah, so let's go ahead and now create a very simple OData service project in today's session by defining entity type, entity set, and the structure of the entity type. So let's go back, and now I go to transaction SEGW. So what I typically do is I just add a folder here, and all the important transactions I will include here as part of this. So I say OData OData development, and in this now I'm going to add all the transactions. So I add here /IWFND/ mint service. So I'll start with the right order. So first we built the OData project using SEGW service gateway builder. Then after building the service, you got to register the service once for all. So for that you use IWFND/mint service. You register the service, and after you register the service, you got to test the service. So for that you can use /IWFND/ there's a gateway client, so GW_client transaction to test the service locally into the system. Without any Fiori app, you can still test your service using gateway client, and then /IWFND/error log to check if at all there is an error into the system. Yeah, so these are all the major 4 transactions which we use. There are other transactions like IWFND traces to look at the OData trace. You have also transactions to clean up the cache, OData cleanup cache, to clean up the server cache if at all there is a metadata which is being cached into the server. All these things are secondary, but majorly these 4 transactions is what we use on day-to-day basis to work with OData. So the first one is gateway service builder. We start always creating a project here. Now currently guys, I am using an embedded system scenario where I have my ERP box, which is my business data, your data, database table, DB layer, API layer, everything in this, and same system is acting like my gateway system. I have everything related to service creation, registration, everything available in the single box. So these two are one single box for me right now. So it's an embedded system I do use right now. Now click on plus and add a new project here. So say Z demo. It's the month currently, it's March. OData, and I just say description for this, my first OData service. So remember guys, we are creating an OData service project. We are not creating a service right now. We have first got to create an OData service project, and then we create a service out of this project. If you have worked with WebIDE Pro, what we do is first we create a component, and after we create a component, we create an application for that component, which generates a URL for you and register a node in SICF transaction, which is nothing but Internet Communication Manager. There it registers a node for you to access it through internet. Same thing happens here. You first create a OData service project stored in local object, and now you can expand and see here data models. So you see entity types, association, entity set. We all know about it now, about these things, as we discuss the theory. So we know entity type is the blueprint or the structure of the data, association a relationship, and entity sets are the actual way of consuming the data through the calls. So now in this we create an entity type. So right click here, choose create, and just define an entity type called product. So just define it as product. My entity type name is going to be product, and I say okay. And now I got to add the properties to this product. So I can add multiple properties here, all the different properties, just like moreover defining a data dictionary structure. Similarly, you're defining a structure for your data, what is being exposed outside through the OData service. So now, just to ease the process, I will quickly go to the function module SE37 to look at what is that function module gives me as a data. So I go to get list, go to tables, and you see this will give me header data of this type. This is the type of the structure, and this is the data what I'm getting from function module, guys. So what I'll do is I just do a control Y, copy all the fields blindly, and just come back and paste them here. So you can see all the fields have come. Now I define product ID as my primary key. That's what also is the primary key in my database table, which uniquely identifies a record in DB table. Hence this I marked it as a key property, and rest all I just keep it unchecked. And now here I have to give the data type for my every of the fields. So typically we keep it as EDM string. So it's a string data type for every property I'm giving. So you can see, just give this, yeah, and just press enter. That's it. Your entity type is ready. So now if you have special columns like some currency code, like in this case the price, so you can choose here the different type, let's say double, and then you can also give precision scale as 2, precision as 2, scale as 2, and maximum length also you can specify. You can also give the unit for this. So let's say in this case the unit for the price is going to be currency code. So I just give the currency code. You can see measurement in currency code. So for this, the currency code is the measurement unit. So I give it here. So all that you can really give. You can give some labels. You can also tell the system that whether based on these properties, can you create a new product? Can you update these properties or not? Can you sort based on these properties? Can these property value can be marked as null? Can you filter the data based on these properties? All this is for metadata. So you remember we saw metadata. So that metadata is actually controlled by these creatable, updatable. So it's merely the representation of metadata. You mark these checkboxes. Now I just say creatable, updatable, sortable, not nullable, of course, and filterable. Everything I just mark it as checked. So we can indeed use them for creatable. During update mode, I can't update the product ID because that's my key. Okay, rest all the properties I can really update. So I just save this now. My first entity type is now defined. Let me create an entity set now for this. So right click here and just say create, and just put the entity set name. Let's say product set, and entity type I can choose F4. I have only one right now. Just choose this and say okay. So you can see now my entity set is also created. So this is how you define first your entity type and entity sets, and then later point of time we will be writing the code to map the data from our data source, which is in this case the BAPI, to this entity set. We will be doing that, but you need a place where you can write all the code, all your ABAP an oops ABAP code you can write at a place. So that place is called runtime artifacts. So runtime artifacts, in case of an OData service, there are 4 runtime artifacts which are created. So whenever we create a service project and we click on generate button, runtime artifacts will be created. So there are 4 runtime artifacts which it mainly creates. One is called MPC, MPC EXT, then DPC and DPC EXT. MPC stands for Model Provider Class. DPC stands for Data Provider Class. And EXT stands for extensions. So MPC EXT class is a model provider class, extension class, which means it inherits from MPC. Similarly, DPC extension class inherits from DPC class. Why is it like this? So whenever you generate here, system has to generate some code. So whatever you defined here, you see this product, system has to create automatically a data structure for this. System has to define a type for this. So this is done by system, SAP system. So when SAP generate any of these type of code, automatically it always put it into the MPC or DPC class. Now it's related to data definition, the definition of your model, then it goes into MPC class. But if it is about accessing the data for the model, like calling something and reading the data and mapping that data to the structure, is done in the DPC class. So we will see one service generation technique in future. There we will see how this data can be automatically granted and mapped to the data structure automatically. This is called service generation technique. For this, you don't need to know any coding know-how. So we will see that in future. But right now, understand any code which SAP standard system generates, it goes in MPC and DPC class. Now there's a problem. If you write some code, where will you write the code? If you start writing the code in these classes, so let's say I write some custom code here, my own code, on top of SAP generated code, nobody will stop you, you can do that. But next time, when you click on regenerate again, what will happen? When you click on regenerate again, next time what will happen? So you created first time generate, these classes got generated. Now you write your own code along with the standard SAP generated code in these classes. And next time when you click on regenerate, what it does, it regenerates the MPC and DPC class. That point of time, whatever code you have written is gone. It's gone. So a regeneration would mean regeneration of MPC and DPC class from scratch. It flush these classes and regenerate these classes again, all the code. Hence, any code which we write inside these classes will be flushed out. To avoid this risk, SAP give a nice solution, and solution is there in object-oriented concept. It's called inheritance. So what they do is they create this MPC and DPC class, and then they also create an MPC extension class, which is the child class of MPC class. This is how SAP does it. So when you generate the service project, it creates MPC extension and DPC extension for you. And these extension classes are actually inheriting from these actual classes which SAP has the code. And then the practice says that you should never write the code into the standard generated classes. Instead, you always write the code into extension classes. Hence, when the regeneration takes place, tomorrow you add more entity set, you add some more features to your OData and regenerate. It shouldn't hamper your code, because system never touches extension classes when regeneration takes place. System always touch these classes. So your code is always isolated from the standard. Yeah, and your custom code is still residing here, which is also working seamlessly along with the standard code in the child classes, because inheritance says all the features of parent class you can reuse, which is public and protected into the child class. Yeah, so you're still having reusability but isolated from the standard implementation in case future changes takes place. Yeah, that's the power of using inheritance in this concept. That's why it generates uh, you know, MPC and MPC extension, DPC and DPC extension. Other than that, it also generates some classes to provide gateway and access to the data service and its metadata, which we are not interested. We will only work during our development with these MPC extension and DPC extension classes. Okay, so let's go ahead and just click on runtime artifact, generate runtime artifacts. So you can see here it's giving the name of DPC extension class, DPC class, and MPC extension class and MPC class. That's the name it will be creating soon. If I click on OK, local object is where I want to store everything right now. So it will create all my runtime artifacts into the system with the guideline, and you can see it's called generated, and now I can just come down and you can see all my classes here. So never ever write the code in DPC and MPC. Always write in extension classes your code. We will see how to write the code and how to activate this service in the next chapter now. So that's the end of this chapter. What we learned today, we learned about the architecture of any application. We learned about basics of OData service and different types. We talked about the sample EPM model. We also talked about the gateway server architecture, and then finally the runtime artifacts. So that's the end of this class. Let's meet tomorrow at the same time. We will then register this service for the first time and look at what this service really gives, and then provide implementation code for enabling the service data consumptions slowly. And then we'll talk about association, we'll talk about function import, we'll talk about navigation properties, support for $filter, $top, $skip. All these support we'll talk about. We'll look at the gateway client, we'll talk about CRUD operations, we'll also use something called Postman plugin. We'll see how to format your data, how to test the OData service from without actually having a Fiori app, and then finally connect our real-time Fiori app, which we built in past classes, to this SAP based OData service, and perform all these operations from Fiori directly. And then this is what will be an end-to-end development of a custom Fiori app from scratch, starting from database to OData to the Fiori app, which is more like standard Fiori app. On that note, is a wrap. Let's meet tomorrow at the same time, and we'll take this discussion forward from here. Thank you so much. Have a nice day and goodbye.